Josh Winckowski has the potential to be a starter for the Boston Red Sox. I'll tell you why on today's Locked On Red Sox.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast, and I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed for free. And honestly, if it's free, why not take advantage of it? So might as well tune in every day. Locked On is here for you. We are your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of the show. You've made it to the end of the week. Congratulations. Now time to take a breather, have a good weekend, hopefully decompress from everything that went on for you this week. The Red Sox don't have much decompressing to do, however, as they have officially gone down to Fort Myers. Pitchers and catchers have reported for spring training, and the Red Sox still have yet to make a lot of impactful moves this offseason. But there is one pitcher that they have seen pitch out of their bullpen that could be a starter in 2024. And I'm going to be talking about why he definitely has the potential to be on today's show. I'm also going to be talking about how they stack up to a fellow division rival in the Tampa Bay Rays, and also talk a little bit later about a notable player that has to do with opening a day for the Red Sox. So lots to talk about on today's show, but first of all, Josh Winckowski is a pitcher that the Red Sox have talked about potentially putting in the starting rotation in 2024. He had a good 2023 season out of the bullpen. He was very effective. He pitched to the tune of a 288 earned run average with a 4-4 record. Over 60 games pitched. He recorded 3 saves, actually, and pitched 84.1 innings. He also struck out 82 batters in that time. So the question becomes, does Josh Winckowski stay in the bullpen or does he become a starter? Prior to coming up to the majors, he had been a starter throughout his professional baseball career before that. In 2023, he added velocity to his sinker about 2.2 miles per hour faster than how he was throwing it before. He ended up throwing that pitch 96.3 miles per hour on average in 2023, which ultimately induced more strikeouts for him. So he found a lot of success with that pitch in 2023, which helped him to pitch a lot better throughout the season and really rack up those accolades and those wins for Boston. One thing to note about Josh Winckowski is that his strikeouts per 9 innings in 2023 was 8.75. So basically that takes an average of how many strikeouts you're recording over a 9-inning time span. What rate are you striking out batters at? And his walk percentage per 9 innings was 3.1 in 2023. Why are those numbers important? That 8.75 Ks per 9 is above average. The average strikeouts per 9 innings for relievers is 7.21. So he's actually above the league average in that category. However, he's not in the top 20th percentile. The top 20th percentile for a reliever is if you record above 8.94 in that statistical category. So he's close. He's not quite there yet, but he's not in that 20th percentile, but he's certainly in the top 25th percentile, which is another promising thing about him that could help him to grow and succeed even more as a starting pitcher. He needs to get his numbers up, I do feel, a little bit. If he's going to be a starter, he definitely is going to have to rely a little bit more on striking guys out, but he's certainly in a good spot where he needs to be, especially relative to other relievers across the league. Another pro to Josh Winckowski is that he has a good resume of pitches. A lot of times you see relievers don't have as much of a variation in pitches because they aren't pitching as long in games. They're only pitching 2, maybe 3 innings on average, so they don't need to mix up their pitch selection as much. But he has 5 capable pitches that he relies on. He relies on his sinker 37.5% of the time, a cutter 35.5% of the time, a slider 16.2% of the time, a changeup 6.0% of the time, and a four-seamer 4.8% of the time. So he's not really challenging those hitters with that four-seam fastball a lot compared to his other pitches, but that's a great sign. If he's able to effectively change up what pitches he's throwing on a given basis, that's only going to increase his value even more. And something that made him so lethal out of the bullpen in 2023 was that he continued to change up those pitches and found success that way, and it helped him to pitch a lot longer during his outings. There were times when Winckowski would go a long time, pitch 4 innings out of the pen, and they can stretch him out. Again, that's the goal during spring training this year. He has a lot of the foundational pieces in place, and I do believe a lot of that is because he used to be a starter. And making that transition from being a reliever to being a starter is a lot easier if you already have that experience. If the majority of your experience, especially at the professional level, involves pitching in relief, you're not going to be able to transition as easily to being a starter because you're used to pitching shorter stints and you're used to only having to be effective for 2 or 3 innings and having batters not have to see you more than maybe twice through the order. The challenging part to being a starter is adapting once you see a batter the third time. A lot of times with these hitters, they start to feel out the pitcher a lot more by the time it's the third time through the order, and that's why with some pitchers, you do see their numbers digress a little bit once they reach that third time through the rotation. And the best pitchers are able to pitch effectively for the full length of time, 7, maybe even sometimes 8 innings, and not slip up and not struggle and not have their numbers decrease significantly when they're facing a lineup the third or fourth time through. And that's something to me that I'd like to see with Winckowski is, can he get that longevity up enough? We can't say that he can't, but we also can't say that he can. But he has the potential to be an effective starter for Boston because of a lot of these foundational things that he already has in place. He's already averaging certain numbers that would be considered really good if he were a starter. And one thing that he definitely should try to keep in mind is to channel his inner 2022 a little bit in some ways. I mean, his hard hit percentage in 2023 was 41.0 compared to a hard hit percentage in 2022 of 46.1%. So he was getting a lot less hard contact in 2023, which is very good. A lot of an improvement in that season. And when I say channel his inner 2022 a little bit, it means more in terms of the fact that he didn't feel a lot of pressure on himself in 2022. He stepped into a bit of an uncomfortable role, but he was more of a swing pitcher that was sometimes starting, sometimes pitching in relief, getting exposure to different things. And that naturally didn't create as many expectations on him, whereas in 2023, there were a lot more expectations set for him because he was pitching primarily in relief. He was expected to dominate a little bit more. And you could tell that some of that early on was hard for him. He did struggle a little bit at the beginning of the season, but he was able to get his numbers back to being really competitive as the season progressed. And just seeing that leap overall from 2022 to 2023, his ERA in 2022 was a 5.89 compared to that 2.88 in 2023. So that's a big jump. He was significantly more effective. He got more exposure. He was able to figure out more about what works for him and what doesn't doesn't work for him. And he is the type of pitcher who I truly believe if he continues to increase his longevity a little bit and can get his arm to work for more than 3 or 4 innings, he absolutely will be an effective starter for Boston. And if he can increase his strikeout percentage a little bit more, he'll be very effective. I mean, as a starter, there's definitely no shame in averaging 8 strikeouts a game. That's considered very good stuff. He can afford to make it a little bit less than that because if you're starting naturally, you're not going to always strike out batters as frequently of a rate because you're just seeing more hitters. So if he can focus on that strikeout percentage, focus on getting his arm working a little bit more during spring training, I do feel like he could be that solid number 5 starter that the Red Sox are looking for this year. Will that happen though? We'll see. But coming up, I'm going to be talking about how the Red Sox stack up to a very familiar division rival. So that's coming up next. I always struggle with space on my computer, not having enough space to back up my info and constantly getting message pop-ups like upgrade your iCloud storage because you don't have enough space for everything that you're trying to put on your computer. It's crazy. I have a lot of pictures on my phone that get transferred over to my computer and a lot of different videos and different things that are work related that are on my computer, and it just takes up so much space. That's what Backblaze is here to help with. Backblaze makes backing up and accessing your data astonishingly easy. One thing that's really good about Backblaze is it has unlimited cloud backup for Macs, PCs, and businesses for just $99 a year. You can easily protect business data through a centrally managed admin. You can protect all the data on your machines automatically, and it's easy to deploy across multiple workstations with various deployment options. There's a lot of great things about it, but it's so important to back your stuff up, especially because what if your computer breaks one day and you need something to save all of your work and you can't get back into that computer? It can seriously help you out. So check out Backblaze today. Also, subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube, or you can get it on Amazon Fire TV, as we have launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV Channels app. So look on that Fire TV Channels app, find Locked On Sports Today, also search Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. You definitely will not be disappointed. Will we be disappointed, though, in the Boston Red Sox 2024 season? Only time will tell, but they're in a very competitive division. The AL East is arguably the best division in baseball. So the question is, how do the Red Sox stack up to that division? And I'm going to take a look at a division rival in the Tampa Bay Rays that haven't made a ton of drastic moves this offseason, but that's kind of the Tampa Bay way, right? We don't always see a ton of big moves from them, but somehow they're always still competitive and they're always still good, so I can never sleep on them. When it comes to Tampa Bay's depth chart, they have a catcher in Rene Pinto who had a .252 batting average with 6 home runs, 16 RBIs, and 10 runs scored last year. Nothing super special about him or anything of note to take into account. He struck out 34 times in 2023, so he's not an overly good hitter. He's good defensively, but I'm not putting him above either of the Red Sox catchers. I think they're pretty even in terms of ability level with the catchers, so I'm not looking at Tampa Bay's catching situation and saying they have a leg up over Boston in that area. What they definitely do have a leg up over the Red Sox in, though, is starting pitching. You have Zach Eflin, who went 16-8 in 2023 with a .350 ERA and 186 strikeouts while only walking at 24 batters. Aaron Savale is in that rotation, who pitched to a 3.46 ERA last year and a 7-5 record. He recorded 116 strikeouts with 33 walks. Then you have Ryan Pepiot in the rotation. Very small sample size with him. He pitched with the Dodgers last year, but only pitched in 8 games. He actually came over to the Rays in a trade when they traded Tyler Glasnow to the Dodgers. So it'll be interesting to see how he slots into that rotation. And then you're looking at Zach Lytle, who last year pitched to a 4.10 ERA with 74 strikeouts and 12 walks and a 3-6 record. So one of their weaker starters for sure. And then you go to Taj Bradley, who again was another weaker starter last year. He pitched in 23 games with a 5-8 record, 559 earned run average, and 129 strikeouts. He walked 39 batters. So that back end of the rotation between Zach Lytle and Taj Bradley is a little bit questionable. Ryan Pepiot is a question mark simply because we don't know how he's going to perform. Didn't get to pitch a lot with the Dodgers last year at the major league level. And how's he going to adapt to being in Tampa Bay? We don't know, but Zach Eflin and Aaron Savale are both nails. Those are both guys that you can definitely rely on if you're the Tampa Bay Rays. Unfortunately, Shane McClanahan, their ace, was placed on the 60-day injured list. So we might not see him really all season. And if we do, it might be limited. But that's a decent starting rotation. I'm not overly moved by the rotation. They have 2, maybe 3 good starters in there, but then it gets questionable towards the end. When it comes to the Red Sox rotation, I still think, the Red Sox don't have that 1-2 punch that Tampa Bay has, so I'm a little bit concerned about that. But when you get to the bottom part of the rotation, they're about pretty even in terms of what could go wrong with those 4 and 5 starters in their 2 rotations. So there's not necessarily a huge difference there. I do give Tampa Bay the slight edge because of the fact that they have that 1-2 punch in Eflin and Savale, who will both likely be very good. And the Red Sox don't have that as much. But other than that, I think they're relatively equal from a pitching standpoint. Then you look at their infield. Randy Arozarena and Richie Palacios in left field. Jose Siri in center field, and Josh Lau and Johnny DeLuca, some combination of all of those guys in the outfield. Josh Lau had a 292 average in 2023 with 20 home runs and 83 RBIs. Definitely a decent season for him. He's somebody that they can utilize out there for sure that will have a good season. Randy Arozarena goes without saying. Really good player, super talented. Didn't have his best season last year with a 254 average, but I definitely feel like he can bounce back and have a bigger year this year. And then you go to Jose Siri, who had an okay season last year, but is definitely not a scary hitter to me. 222 average, 25 home runs, 56 RBIs, and 58 runs scored. So overall, when I look at the Tampa Bay Rays outfield, I actually give the Red Sox outfield a slight advantage between Jarren Duran, Wilyer Abreu, and Tyler O'Neill if he stays healthy. I think Randy Arozarena is better than any of those guys I named, but if you take the outfield overall, I think the Red Sox have a little bit more of a secure outfield. And then in the infield, Brandon Lau at second base for the Rays. He had a 231 average last year, 21 home runs, 68 RBIs. He's not bad. He's never been the best hitter. His best season was 2019 when he hit 270, but he's never been an over 300 season, so I'm not super moved by him. But Yandy Diaz is a pretty dangerous hitter. 330 average last year, 22 home runs, and 78 RBIs. He'll be good again. He's the type of hitter that's definitely useful in any lineup, so I do trust that he'll have a very good season for them. Then they have Isaac Paredes playing third base, who had a 250 average last year, 31 home runs, and 98 RBIs. Again, nothing too crazy, but he's the type of guy who can help get the job done when needed. Jonathan Aranda, 230 average, 2 home runs, and 13 RBIs last year. He only played in 34 games, not really enough to judge how he's actually legitimately going to be. And Harold Ramirez with a 313 average last year, 12 home runs, and 68 RBIs. He played in quite a few games last year, and he has the chance to be their number 1 DH. I assume that will happen. So when you look at their lineup as a whole, it's very much not that strong. I mean, every year we say these things about the Tampa Bay Rays where we find ourselves being like, oh, they're not that good, but then they manage to be competitive and nobody understands how or why. Their bullpen, I mean, their relief pitching, Jason Adam recorded 2.98 ERA last year with a 4-2 record. He struck out 69 batters. He'll be pretty good. They also have Phil Maton in there with a 3 ERA and a 4-3 record and 74 strikeouts. Colin Poke is somebody who stands out to me as a very dominant pitcher in their bullpen, a 12-3 record, 223 earned run average. But this Rays bullpen definitely has the potential to be very good or not very good. I mean, I give a lot of credit to their closer, Pete Fairbanks. He's absolute nails, almost unhittable. So that at least they have that going for them. And I definitely put him above Kenley Jansen in terms of reliability at this point in their career. Kenley's a Hall of Fame closer, but where he's at right now, he's not necessarily as reliable of a closer as he used to be. So I'm putting Fairbanks slightly above him in terms of where they rank and who I feel like will have the better season. But overall, with the bullpen, I think the Red Sox bullpen is better. I mean, I think the Rays definitely have some strong arms in their bullpen. I mean, Sean Armstrong had a 138 ERA last year, but he only pitched in 39 games. So there's a small sample size with some of these pitchers in the Rays pen. And I think my issue is similar to a lot of other areas for the Red Sox. They need a lot of things to go right in order for that bullpen to be the most competitive as it can be. So when you take the two teams overall together, there are a lot of things about the Tampa Bay Rays that I like. There's a lot of upside in that rotation, lots of strong hitters that will contribute, but other guys who are just very much average. And when you take their roster as a whole overall, I actually think they are the closest to the Red Sox in terms of ability level right now. I think there's a lot of things about that team that could go very wrong and they could be down struggling a bit in this division. And when it comes to the Red Sox, I don't think the Red Sox are that much behind them. I say it ends up being maybe a 2 or 3 game difference between the two. Tampa Bay, again, I might be underestimating them because every year they manage to find a way to compete with a roster that just doesn't make sense. So I'm sure they'll probably prove me completely wrong and they'll play super well and be towards the top of the division, but I'm just not seeing it. I'm not convinced. They didn't make a ton of huge moves this offseason to improve their roster. Their starting pitching is going to be the best thing about that team. It's been for a while. It's something that's going to steer the ship for them and keep them moving in the right direction. But again, like that bullpen worries me a little bit. Shaky guys in there, some who are confident, some who will pitch well, others who are iffy. So you never really know. But when I'm comparing them to the Red Sox, I'm putting Boston as a team that has definitely potential to compete with them. So we'll see what happens as we progress more towards opening day here, see if either the Red Sox or the Rays make a lot of moves. But when you look at the Red Sox roster, a bullpen that's solid, a starting rotation that has question marks, and a lineup that should be pretty good still. So that matchup between the Rays and the Red Sox, I think, will be very competitive. We'll see how it goes, though. Still more time for the teams to make moves, although not that much. So we'll see what this looks like heading into opening day. And speaking of opening day, we are 41 days away. What does that symbolize for the Red Sox? You'll find out next. How big of a sports bettor are you? Are you somebody who's looking to just get into it and you haven't done it before? Or have you been sports betting your whole life? Regardless of where your potential is, FanDuel is the place for you for sports betting. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. FanDuel is a lot of fun. It definitely gives you a lot of potential to win money. So you should check it out today. You also should subscribe to Locked On Sports today. Actually, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and is now also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is very exciting for the network. Nobody else does this. It's a great way for you to keep up with all things going on in sports, so you definitely should check it out. We are 41 days away from opening day. That's very much not that much time. After 40 hits, I'm going to feel like it's super close because for whatever reason, anything in the 30s feels significantly less than 40 to me. I don't know why. It's just a weird thing, but 41 days away, that's almost in the 30s. And a notable player to wear number 41 for the Boston Red Sox is a player they just traded this offseason that a lot of people didn't see coming in Chris Sale. We'll never forget that legendary ending to the 2018 World Series when Chris Sale struck out Manny Machado for the last out to clinch the World Series, and the emotion associated with it and his face, just the excitement level that he showed. It was just a really cool time in what was such a fun season for Boston. Last year was a tough season for him. He finished the season with a 430 earned run average and a 6-5 record over 20 games pitched. He struck out 125 batters, so he was still the Chris Sale we know and love in terms of being able to strike out a lot of guys, but injuries plagued him for a lot of the season. He was very off and on during the season and sometimes would pitch very well and have ace caliber stuff, and then other times he just would not look good at all. It was a very hot and cold scenario for him, so ultimately the trade was necessary. He couldn't stay healthy either. It was pretty unfortunate, but he's had a lot of accolades in his career. He was an MLB All-Star for 7 consecutive seasons from 2012 to 2018 and led the AL in strikeouts in 2015 and 2017. After reaching 300 strikeouts in a single season for the first time in 2017, he was selected as the AL Sporting News starting pitcher of the year. Sale was the quickest to reach 2,000 career strikeouts in the fewest innings pitched. When he was with the Red Sox, he pitched very well early on. He was traded to the team on December 6th, 2016 from the White Sox when the Red Sox gave up Yoan Moncada, Michael Kopech, Louis Alexander Basabe, and Victor Diaz. So it was a huge haul that the White Sox got in return, but it was a big deal for the Red Sox because this was a move that needed to happen at the time. Actually, he didn't switch to wearing number 41 until he joined the Boston Red Sox. He was wearing number 49 before that, but switched to 41 because 49 is unofficially retired for Tim Wakefield. With the 2017 Red Sox, Sale began the season by striking out 10 or more batters in 8 consecutive starts, tying the major league record he already shared with Pedro Martinez. After going 11-4 with a 2.75 ERA and an MLB leading 178 strikeouts in the first half of 2017, Sale was named the AL starting pitcher at the All-Star Game for the second consecutive season, the first pitcher to do so since Randy Johnson started for the National League in 2000 and 2001, and the first for the AL since Dave Stieb in 1983-84. Sale pitched 2 scoreless innings in the game, striking out 2 batters. And then in his second start after the All-Star break, Sale joined Johnson, Martinez, and Nolan Ryan as the only 4 pitchers to have struck out 200 batters in their first 20 starts of a season. Pitching against the Toronto Blue Jays on August 29th, Sale recorded his 1,500th career strikeout, becoming the fastest to do so in terms of innings pitched. At that point, he had reached 1,290 innings, surpassing Kerry Wood, who had done so in 1,303 innings. Sale reached 300 strikeouts for the season when he struck out 13 batters on September 20th. It was the first 300 strikeout season since Clayton Kershaw in 2015 and the first in the American League since Martinez in 1999. 2017 and 2018 were just phenomenal seasons by Chris Sale. They were prime Chris Sale. They don't win that World Series in 2018 without him. Absolutely not. So we'll always appreciate what Chris Sale did during his time in Boston. I truly appreciate being able to watch him pitch when I did. It was unfortunate to see the way his career has progressed since then with all the injuries and him declining, but we'll never forget his time in Boston, especially early on, to help bring the Red Sox another championship. I'm going to miss Chris Sale, honestly. I miss that absolute dog he had in him and his fight and just his clubhouse mentality. He's definitely a good leader and a good guy to have around. So I'm wishing him nothing but the best in Atlanta. I hope he finds success there. For the Red Sox, though, it was time to turn the chapter. Still a lot of great memories with Chris Sale, and that's a great thing to look back on as we sit here 41 days from opening day. So, like I always say, as we progress closer and closer to opening day happening, just keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.